You're about to start doing the laundry. You finally got there. After some delay, effort, whatever it was, somehow you're finally there, ready. Somebody calls out from the next room, "Hey, did you do that laundry yet?" And that wanting suddenly drains right out of you. In its place, maybe some irritation, resentment, defeat. You can't quite put your finger on it. You can't even say why. If you know that moment, not the laundry, but that draining, this is for you. Maybe you know another side to this too. You lose yourself in something for hours, something you're interested in, but then drift away from other things you care about, often without even noticing. Throughout, maybe you're called smart, but then you're wondering, how can I get stuck with things that seem so simple? I'm Dr. Kourosh Dini, psychiatrist, psychoanalyst, 25 years in practice, and I've lived this myself. This series is about a way to work with a mind like this instead of forcing it. For a moment, take a look around the room you're in. The chair, the lamp, the book on the shelf, pen on the desk. Maybe you got some music playing in the background, the screen you're watching me on now. All of these were made by people. Beyond this room, the streets, the songs, the technology, the medicines, all of these came from the minds of humanity, formed over many lifetimes, a little at a time. Our minds are powerful. You might not feel that most days. Instead, you might feel the unfinished thing on your desk. Email you haven't answered, the shame of being late again to something you cared about. The trouble is, the proof of that ability can be hard to feel. Instead, we tend to sense a distance, this gap between our internal rhythms and whatever's going on in this world around us. Many powerful minds throughout time have had this creative, wandering way of being, and have had to figure out a way to do something about it. Lincoln, Agatha Christie, Shelley, Emily Dickinson, Da Vinci, Beethoven, Edison, Franklin, Mozart, Jefferson, the list goes on. Diagnoses, where they exist at all, are speculative. But the pattern in their lives is recognizable enough. Each of them have had to work out, alone, how to harness what they had. They didn't have the language for it. They didn't have a community. They certainly did not have a course, a video, or a book about it. They had to figure out, trial and error, at a great deal of personal cost, those conditions under which their minds could play and make something that felt alive. And that play, that flow between self and world, is where those beautiful works, those lasting works, were born. But that same playful spirit in abundance can just as easily lead them astray. They had to figure out what to do about that too. Each had their own unique paths, but the concepts behind them can be shared. Fundamentals that can be understood and used to guide our own unique selves. We still have work to do, but a map can at least tell us where. When a wandering mind is on, it tends to show certain strengths. Creativity is often the most visible. The ability to gather, find patterns, weave something into existence. This is one that I tend to rely on quite heavily. Now, some wandering minds find calm in chaos. When everything's on fire, others are panicking. They find themselves to be steadier. They're able to be engaged, if not lead sometimes. Some find wide connections between hobbies, sciences, art, engineering, between something a child said yesterday and something a colleague needs today. Some can see the forest and the trees at the same time, the big picture and the small details held in that same field of attention. Some have a unique empathic sensitivity, this resonance of feeling without quite knowing how someone else is doing. They can somehow feel it. Sometimes it shows up in quick wit, humor. And some carry this insatiable hunger for the new challenges, new hobbies, new fields. A wandering mind can take things up enthusiastically, then drop them just as enthusiastically. There's a quieter half, too, that rarely makes the picture. This same mind that scatters can also settle into contemplation, into depth, long, slow turning over of some idea. The loud half gets all the attention, but some of the best of this way of being happens in that quiet half. These aren't accidents. They're patterns of how this sort of creative mind can organize itself. Among all the strengths of a wandering mind, there's one that's harder to name, and maybe more important than the rest. When we make something that we find to be meaningful, could be something small, could be something only we would ever see, but still meaningful to us, something changes within us that runs deep. That act of creating the work also creates a ground that we stand on. As we create, we feel here, we feel now. So while medications can help, accommodations can help, the practices in the rest of this series, those might help too. But those roots of meaning, when found, do something those others can't. They organize us from the inside. They help us feel alive and connect us with others who also feel alive. Minds hunger for meaning. Without it, we grow restless. So a great deal of this series is about finding those roots, how to engage those, that place where we can sometimes even calmly connect with that sense of meaning. Here's the thing about this sort of mind. When it engages deeply. Interest, urgency, challenge, lust, care, play, mastery, and the harder ones like shame, whim, worry, regret, despair. There's discovery, there's scatter, there's plenty more. The wandering mind doesn't tend to dial down, which can be something of a gift, but also a great trouble at times. Now, we started this with one of those moments, the laundry, that want that drained the instant somebody else mentioned it. But it's rarely just that one moment. There are days, weeks, whole stretches of months or years where nothing seems to align. We can dive too deep into one thing, lose track of everything else, drift in some fog of frustration, boredom, overwhelm, with no idea of how to get out. The baffling part is that it's not laziness. The want is real. I want to do the laundry. Maybe another part doesn't. Something about a wandering mind makes wanting and pressure tangle in these ways that are hard to explain even to ourselves. So we often wonder, especially because sometimes things go well, when they're going well, how did I get here? And when they're not going well, how do I get there? Those questions are the core of this series. I'm going to call this kind of a mind a wandering mind. A wandering mind is to varying degrees distractible, tends towards hyperfocus when something captures it, and towards procrastination when something doesn't. A wandering mind has difficulty getting to or carrying through on its own intentions, even intentions we care about. A wandering mind can be prone to derailment, prone to periodic exhaustion. It's a complex set of characteristics rather than a single trait. But I like to look at it this way. Many of us with this kind of mind carry a particular spirit, a spirit of individuality, of playfulness, of a desire for challenge, of deep engagement. Those aren't symptoms. That's the ground we stand on. Everyone's mind wanders, yes, to some degree, some more than others. And for individuals, sometimes some hours, days, or seasons of life more than others. The phrase, wandering mind, is meant to recognize that what looks like a category is really a continuum. And sometimes that wandering can be terribly strong. The wandering mind I'm speaking to is not a different species. It's a recognizable shape. The diagnosis of ADHD is one way of naming this constellation, and for many of you, it'll be the most accurate one. For some, it won't be. Their minds shaped by anxiety, depression, trauma, by simply being alive in a culture that doesn't seem to quite fit somehow. What I'll share is written for that wider field. If you've been told you're too smart to be struggling this much, this series is for you. If you've been told you're not trying hard enough, when in fact you've exhausted yourself trying, again, this series is for you. When a wandering mind is not on, when the muse isn't arriving and the day isn't aligning, we still have things that we need to do. The report is due, the dishes pile up, the bill is somewhere in the house. A wandering mind in this state often turns to what I call force-based strategies. We try to push ourselves or arrange ourselves to be pushed into doing a thing. I've used all of these. Most of us have. We use deadlines, we use shame, we use anxiety, we write things in capital letters on the refrigerator door, hoping the intensity of the number of times that we've circled it will translate into some equivalent intensity of action. We swear at ourselves under our breath, we ask others to remind us, knowing that as we ask them that it would be better if we did this for ourselves. What makes these methods so insidious is that sometimes they work. When a deadline is close enough, anxious enough, real enough, we tend to finish the report. We'll prove in some sense that our wandering mind is capable of producing work on demand. But each method has its own way of failing, and those failures accumulate. What begins as a strategy becomes a habit, and what begins as a habit becomes some pattern of relating to ourselves that are in ways that are hard to undo. Let me name these failures. What's the trouble with these? Because they all look like they're working from the outside. Interest fails first, even though it sounds like it shouldn't. Interest is wonderful when it's there, but it can't be conjured at will. Our unconscious knows when we're trying to talk ourselves into something. Interest is also famously capricious. By the time we've decided to pursue one, two more have appeared. We're jumping between them rather than completing any. Deadlines fail next. They can't be faked either. The unconscious, again, knows. They don't care about our context. They don't care if we're sick or grieving or in the middle of something else important. They don't even care about each other. They press on anyway. When deadlines work, they work by keeping that fight or flight chronically on, exhausting us, if not damaging us, over time. Worry fails third. Worry is a deadline with no scheduled date. It runs all the time. It substitutes one focus for another. Whatever's most worrisome takes center stage. The rest of life slips out of view. Shame and shouting fail fourth. We write things in all caps. We call ourselves names. Do the work, you... insert expletive here. They work the way a slap works. Briefly, maybe shoving us into motion, but it leaves a mark. And those marks accumulate. We come to believe what we've been calling ourselves. How about other people? That fails fifth. We try to make them our willpower. Just remind me, just check in, just hold me accountable. They're not us. They can't calibrate to what's internal to us. More painfully, even when they do their best, we tend to intrude on each other, which builds resentment, them with us and us with them. Now, there are ways to manage that sort of accountability that can work, but often we do things in this sort of resentment-building way. Another system fails sixth. There's always another system, a new app, a new method, a new book, maybe even this series. The novelty carries us through a few weeks, and then it fades, and we're back where we started, sometimes feeling worse, because here's yet another thing that we could not make work. The system is not us. It cannot do the work of being us. And then there's the most insidious one, success. When force-based work succeeds, we tend not to let go. The successes feels rare enough that we want to ride them. We push through, we work through exhaustion, grab whatever idea appears, terrified that if we don't, we won't get that sort of clarity, that flow again for weeks. In the middle of that hyper-focus, we lose track of the small things, the bills, the homework, the call we promised to make. The success carries its own wake of failure with it. After enough of this, a certain feeling can settle in. Maybe it's related to despair. Maybe it's something close to can't be bothered. Even with things we would otherwise enjoy, that sort of meh. We're overworked, overspent, overwhelmed. I don't wanna. That phrase can seem almost childish, but it captures something about that state, doesn't it? We don't wanna, and we can hardly say why. People tell us we're smart. You're so smart, why can't you just? On a good day, we know it's meant kindly. On a bad day, we hear it as a verdict. Some of us, by this point, have given up calling ourselves smart. We instead go with other words like lazy, scattered, broken. This series is not meant as a way of fixing this way of being. I've read enough productivity material and the like to know how those sorts of things can feel. It's just do this and you'll be fixed, saved, whatever. It's not what I'm offering. There's no method in the videos that follow that will turn a wandering mind into a non-wandering mind. I don't think there's a method that should. This series, though, is going to help you build, slowly and with care, a relationship with your mind in which you can start engaging the things you need to do, but more importantly, or quite importantly, get to the things you want to do, all without forcing yourself. Start deciding more regularly, more deliberately where to put your attention. Start building a trust in yourself to maybe set things down, knowing genuinely that you can pick them up in your time, at your pace, still manage to do the things that need doing. The goal is not to be some productivity machine. The goal is a sense that growing slowly over time, that you can guide yourself, to be able to meaningfully engage at your pace and rhythm. Those questions, while you're there, how did I get here? And when you're not there, how do I get there? The rest of the series is an attempt to make those questions answerable. Not all at once and not perfectly. The wandering mind is not a problem to be solved. It's a way of being to be lived with gracefully over time. We begin with where we are. So force-based work is the trouble. What's actually underneath it? The thing those surface framings of ADHD have been gesturing at without quite naming. What are those? Over the next videos, we'll start getting into those fundamentals. If you'd like a printable companion to the practices that we'll be building together here, the free Waves Quick Reference Guide is linked below. We'll begin with the foundations and a few exercises, starting with the next video, and I hope to see you there.